Former groupies of Reddit, what was your experience? NSFW. Obviously I'm not asking for names of rock stars, but I was thinking that if we hear stories about how many hundreds and even thousands of women these rock stars had sex with, then there have to be some with a story or two. I'm going to go ahead and make this NSFW to be on the safe side. A girl I used to have an on again, off again fling with had sex with Darius Rucker, Hootie from Hootie and the Blowfish. She said he was a fantastic lay, a perfect gentleman, and even sang to her in the morning as he made her breakfast. On the way out he thanked her for being a good host and said she had a lovely house. I only wanna be with you, wow psyche. I'm out. I managed a venue for quite a long time. In 2004 or 2005, we booked Ryan Dunn and Don Vito's rock tour for some reason. After the show it turned into a huge coke party. I was sitting on a sectional couch in the large green room, while two moronic girls were giving Don Vito skin tags and all head for quite a while about 3 feet away from me. This is one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. I pissed next to Shawn Michaels at Six Flags, San Antonio. His dick was par for the course. I left satisfied. Should have peed on his face and called it sweet chin music, apostrophe. Not grumpy but production manager here. Working Alejandro Escovedo concert a few years ago and there were two young teenage girls in attendance wearing homemade shirts with his name all over it. During the solo acoustic opening act he invited the girls on stage because it was one of their birthdays. After he played a song they exited side stage and ran back to Alejandro's dressing room. When they barged in they saw him doing cocaine. He yelled at them to leave, and they spent the rest of the concert crying at the entrance waiting to get picked up. This story, every time I thought I knew where it was going, it abruptly changed direction. Not me, I'm lucky to ever even get with non-celebrities. But a pretty good friend of mine had sex with Jennifer Coolidge, Stifler's mom, this year. He's only 27, and she's 52, so the prowling cougar character she's famous for may be kinda accurate. He gets embarrassed if you bring it up. But I'm like, dude, you banged the quintessential MILF. There's an entire genre of porn named after the term that person popularized. Own up to it with pride. I would pay a lot of money and or do any number of things to be able to say I ducked Stifler's mom. Epic. Edit and all. Friend of a roommate's mother ducked DMX. We got his number from her cell phone, but his answering machine message was just him barking for 30 seconds. So X really gave it to her? What? This chick at my school hooked up with Bass God when he performed at our 4/20 Spring Jam Festival thing, and when she woke up in his hotel room he was gone. There was like $23 and a little bag of really shitty weed by the bed. Hilarious. When she woke up in his hotel room he was gone. There was like $23 and a little bag of really shitty weed by the bed. Thank you Bass God. Edit. Highest upvoted comment to date. TYBG. Someone somewhere just realized Bass God ducked their bitch. I used to look and dress like the lead singer of Disturbed. Seriously, I could have been his double. Lip piercings and all. I went to one of their shows and waited outside afterwards for the band to come through. He paused and took a double take at me, shook my hand, and said he spotted me in the crowd. He was probably lying, but in a few of my pictures from that night it did look like he was looking right at me. Anyway, after they went off to their bus, a smoking hot groupie came up and talked to me for a while and ended up taking me back to her place for sex. Not the same, but one of my top 3 moments in life. At first, I thought this was going to end up with you having sex with David Draymond, and then I imagined him screaming, "Hoo-wah-rah, during climax. Ha 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 ha." I just cried laughing when I pictured David Draymond having gay sex and screaming that. Followed my favorite band on MySpace. Was absolutely obsessed. Constantly watched their videos on demanded. Lurked the shit out of them at concerts. Started talking to the bassist on MySpace one day. He got me into their show, and we spent all night in a cemetery talking. We made out, but he had a girlfriend, so I stopped talking to him. A few months later he called me, told me he broke up with her because he couldn't stop thinking about me. I moved from Utah to New York to be with him. and 6 years later we were married. I will never tell him how obsessed with his band I was. Never. I'm just glad a bassist got laid. Bassists always get laid. We just spread the myth we don't, because we are just that humble. My mom's coworker banged Bon Jovi. She told everyone about it including me when I was 10. As if anyone would keep banging Bon Jovi a secret. I'd put it on my CV. And you're hired. I know a girl who had sex with Ron White. I know. Right? Shudder. She said. It was very pink when referring to his Don. But said he smoked her out with some super dank weed and had a fat stash to boot. I ended up meeting him while I was working at the bar downtown that I worked at. Gave him my number because why the hell not? It's not like I'm ever going to see him again. He texted me a little while later saying he was waiting for his flight at the airport and asked me to send him naked pics. I didn't, but I had a nice laugh about the whole thing. I had sex with Brian Bell from Weezer when they were touring in Manitoba. Great guy. He played the Say It Ain't So solo for me. So playing 11 notes on the minor scale is all it takes. Shit, Manitoba might not be so bad after all. Say It Ain't So. A few years ago a woman I worked with always bragged about how she slept with Steven Tyler when she was 18. She's probably in her late 40s early 50s now. According to her, they still talk on the phone about once a year. Not sure if that's true though. My mom used to party with Steven Tyler as well. Aka my mom did drugs with Steven Tyler and definitely sucked his penis. That's the same mouth that kissed you. At the club I work at several years ago, maybe 5, Kid Rock came in one night after playing downtown. Well, he hit it off with one dancer named Destiny. They went back to his tour bus, where they got ducked up, and did they deed. She supposedly hung out with him for a week, and apparently he likes rough anal. So there's that. Edit lol, I love the comments and am pretty sure it was giving. Apparently he likes rough anal. Did he give her a strap-on to use, or did she bring her own? My friend's cousin dated Derek Jeter for a while and had keys to his apartment. According to the story, she entered one day to find him butt ass naked on his couch watching highlights of himself and bumping his chest with his fist saying yeah Jeets. Yeah Jeets. If this is true, it is amazing. Even if it's not true, it's just one of those things we all know probably happened at some point. My aunt was banging Charlie Chaplin back in the day. She was a nurse in Hollywood. She is dead now, so unfortunately I can't ask her more. She had one picture on her china hutch of them together. She never married or had kids. Edit. Chaplin not Chaplin. Was she also in a movie about pot and video games? He wasn't silent when she was through with him. I heard Jennifer blew Chicago in the parking lot. That's a lot of people. Till lots of grandmas ducked Charlie Chaplin. I work with a woman who told me lots of stories about how she used to actively try to sleep with touring heavy metal bands back in the 80s. She once got banged in a wardrobe by a guy called Johnny Rod from the band Wasp. Apparently he had a small cock and lasted about 2 minutes. She said that the vast majority of guys she ducked were disappointing, but she loved being able to talk about it afterwards. She's filth. I love her. You'd think a member of Wasp would duck like a beast, but maybe that talent is solely restricted to Blackie Lawless. My dad met him. Apparently he's an awesome dude. Didn't ask about the sex, though. Blew the drummer of a reasonably big 90s punk rock group in the back of their tour bus. I was young and dumb, and had terrible aim. So he ended up coming all over his shirt. On my way out, I was introduced to the rest of the band. I ended up shaking all their hands. It was awkward. He and I keep in touch occasionally, but we'll go years without talking. He set me up with backstage passes once when he was in town, and he actually toured me around when I had a 10-hour layover in his city. 7/10. Not bad. Was this like Fat Records big or Green Day big? Op PLS deliver. This story is a lot different than most of them in this thread, but it's interesting. I knew someone in high school that had a friend who responded to one of Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco, tweets about needing a ride home, somewhat sarcastic because he could pay for a cab from a local Cincinnati restaurant. He was notorious for this. always tweeting stuff like hey y'all, I'll be at the Kenwood BW3S for the next couple hours if anyone wants to come and hang out. Apparently he always had fun with it and was super nice to everyone. He would often pay the entire tab for food and drinks of everyone that came to hang out with him. Well, this guy I knew responded to his tweet and said he'd be there to pick him up in a little. The guy went, found Chad and picked him up. Chad took a liking to the kid because he asked if he wanted to go over and hang at his bachelor pad. Kinda weird if you ask me, because the kid was like 17 and Chad was like 27. So they go back to his house and just hang out and play video games and such. Chad liked him so much he began inviting him over on the regular and would even buy him tickets to Bengals games and stuff. Even flew him out to LA one time to hang out for a weekend. It sounds to me like Chad was just a really lonely guy and wanted to have a close friend. In Chad's defense, the kid was really chill, very funny guy and super mature for his age, so it's not as weird, I guess. My uncle has worked with countless artists and actors, etc. He's a sound director slash engineer slash boom man slash etc. None of these are sex stories, sorry, but are pretty interesting. Colin James, he was in charge of Colin James' prized guitar which had been signed by countless artists over the years. They were on the road and he had the guitar sitting over his lap when the bus driver fell asleep at the wheel going over a small bridge. The guitar flew out the window and washed down the river. Colin didn't blame my uncle and was an all-around nice guy. Prince, or the artist formerly known as Prince as he made everyone refer to him as. If at any point you simply called him just Prince, your ass was canned. He also supposedly had little spies who would report to him if they overheard anyone having a private discussion and didn't use his former title in conversation. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he and my uncle used to go fishing once or twice a year together. Once, my uncle was wiring him up before filming when a producer happened to walk by and started screaming at my uncle because he didn't like the way he was setting the mix or something and was taking too long. Arnold stared the guy down and said something to the effect of, "This man is a professional and I've worked with him many times. Don't tell him how to do his job or you won't have one." Apparently they are still pretty good buds. Sylvester Stallone, all around dick. Don't look him in the eye when you talk to him or you'll most likely be fired. ZZ Top slash Headpins. I put these two together because they were touring together at the time my uncle was working with them. My uncle was dated to get married during the tour and was just going to quickly elope my aunt because the schedule was too hectic for anything serious. Word got around and ZZ and the Headpins made time in the schedule, paid for the ceremony, and held it on their yacht. Tom Cochrane. Pretty sure this was Cochrane. Ike used to have my uncle, aunt and my cousins over for Christmas dinner when the kids were very little. He'd also dress as Santa. Rolling Stones. I haven't gotten many of these stories out of my uncle. He's really humble about his experiences and doesn't talk much about the old times. But he says Keith Richards is the most down to earth, coolest dude he's ever met. And they hold crazy parties. If anyone would like more, let me know and I'll try and remember some other ones. But I don't feel like listing everything if nobody reads it. Edit. Morani. One time he bought out all the admission for Van Calder Peony specifically for the cast and crew of The Sixth Day, as well as their families. And Ike. Anyone whose family was not there, Arnie offered to fly in. That same day the production company was disputing what to give everyone as a token of appreciation, and came to the conclusion of specialty jackets. One of the execs arrived with several boxes of windbreakers and Arnie told him to get leather instead. The exec said, "We already had these ones made, though." Arnie picked my uncle up off the ground by the shoulders and said in his screaming voice, "Do you want these? Or do you want leather?" My uncle replied, "A leather." Good. They got Sixth Day commemorative leather jackets. George Thorogood. They were at a bar one night, but before going inside, Thorogood asked my uncle to go inform the manager slash owner slash staff that he would be coming in and that he did not want a scene. Just a quiet corner where he could sit and drink. Okay, well, a couple hours later the owner goes up on stage after the bar band takes a break and announces, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest in the audience we'd like to pose a toast to. Tip a shot of bourbon, scotch, and 1 beer to George Thorogood. People start rushing up to get an autograph and, well, Thorogood snaps. Loses it. He starts flinging chairs across the bar and smashing shit. Apparently my uncle and a few other roadies had to pull him out of there before he killed the owner. They weren't welcome back. Bryan Adams? Something tells me this could have been somebody else. Anyway, somebody tried robbing their hotel suite with all the equipment. When my uncle happened to step in to grab something, the guy pulled a knife and, after a short struggle, stabbed my uncle. It was pretty serious. Worse, they were scheduled to be hitting the road in a few hours and nobody wanted to take the time to help him. He was broke. In the States. No insurance. And the entire crew was ready to leave him. Bryan Adams, however, took him to the hospital, paid for his stay, then flew him home to BC several days later. Smallville, TV show. They had a barn rigged to catch fire for a quick scene. My uncle had to go inside on the top and rig the mix and whatnot. Well, someone told the director that all that was done with, and they began filming, lighting the barn on fire. He didn't even realize that they'd set ablaze, shot the scene, cut, and put the fire out until he finished and stepped out of the barn. People were looking at him like WTF, and he just said it was really hot in there. They explained what happened, and he went wide-eyed, still racking my brain for more. I'll ask my cousin if she can give me some more juicy ones. Edit 2. I'll have some more stories soon. Talking with my cousin. Okay, so update on the Bryan Adams story. My uncle was actually the tour manager. He was carrying $25k in a briefcase after a gig they performed, and was sitting in the hotel room. Someone knocked on the door. When he opened it, he was immediately stabbed. It was suspected that he had some involvement with the whole situation. But Bryan Adams, still unconfirmed, knew my uncle wouldn't do something like that. Same reason he hired him to be the tour manager, I guess. Thus, Adams paid for his hospitalization and flew him home on a private jet. People are asking about the Stones quite a bit. I went to one of their concerts a number of years ago. I actually ran into my uncle after the concert randomly, and he did me the favor of calling a few people. After about 20 minutes he got me backstage, where I was with VIP members. The band themselves only walked through very briefly and shook hands and took photos, etc. They're all really duckin' cool. On a side note, the Stones are all really fussy about being sound checked and wardrobes. Except Keith, who is very affable and easy to get along with. The others aren't divas by any extent. They just don't like the process and kind of procrastinate before going on stage about it. Girlfriend's sister worked at Four Seasons in Maui. Sylvester Stallone took a shit in the pool out of spite. He was a rude asshole, apparently, or a loose asshole. My English teacher my senior year of high school was a roadie groupie for Grateful Dead. She got really defensive whenever we asked if she got psychedelic with any of them. She also taught philosophy at a local university for quite a few years. Go figure. Edit. We also had a theory that she was at Woodstock, given her age, that we guessed she would have been 17 to 22 or something, but we never got around to asking her. Edit 2. Type the most important word of the whole thread. Really? Whoopsie. My mom made out with Harry Chapin. She tells everyone. I smoked pot with Johnny Hopkins. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.